What's going on, everybody? I'm Ben Backus.
And I'm Kevin Paulin, and welcome to the Falling Up Podcast.
Here we have conversations about turning obstacles into opportunities. Today we bring to you a conversation with Libby Protzman. Libby is going to go on to introduce herself as she wears many, many hats and is very involved in helping others. So a few disclaimers for this episode. It is wildly powerful, but it can also, we talk about really sensitive topics of overcoming traumas. So I just want to throw that out there for anyone who may be, experiencing trauma today, that this certainly could open up some wounds. And in addition to that, on the other side, it's remarkably powerful. And it really shows how you can be handed very, 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 very poor playing cards and turn them into pocket aces. Absolutely. It is a very, very powerful conversation, and one that I hope as many people as possible can listen to, because I know it's going to help people.
Absolutely. I really don't have much to say. Please enjoy this episode, and welcome to the Falling Up Podcast.
What's up, Libbs?
Hey, guys.
All right.
Dude, I feel like we're just picking right up. Like, I walked in and I'm like, oh, staff meeting.
Yep.
That's
It
it.
felt so natural. Like, it felt so natural.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I was like, oh, cool.
Staff meeting.
I think it's been like probably 4 or 5 years since the last time I saw you in person.
2015
Probably.
or 16, I would say.
16.
Yeah.
2016, right?
15, you left. 16, you
And
came back for the internship.
I feel like there was a time after I left where, I'm trying to think, I feel like I saw a handful of people from the Columbus house, and I forget where. I know it was in like West Haven.
Check.
But coming back, I know we tried to get you on for a little bit and had some scheduling conflicts.
Sorry about that.
No, that's 100%
divine
on us.
timing. I believe in divine timing.
But I think we have so many different roads that we can take during this conversation, so I'm really excited for it. So what I think is a great way to start is, can you kind of just introduce yourself, kind of what your roles have been in the past? Because I know you wear many, 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 many hats and have worn many, 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 many hats. So I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, cool. So my name's Elizabeth Protzman, Libby for short. I'm 33, live in Connecticut with my husband and 2 kids. I grew up in New Haven for most of my life, and then moved to Guilford, Connecticut when I was a preteen, or a tween, and spent years there. I absolutely love Connecticut. I moved back here after college and for grad school. So, this is where my bones are, and that's one reason why I got so involved in community service. Currently for work, I sort of freelance. I work for myself. I am the VP of Communications for Women Empowering Women Events. It's a national women's conference hosting organization. So we put on conferences, both virtual and in person, for women entrepreneurs, women public speakers, women who have overcome trauma, women in recovery. With a focus on diversity and inclusion, things like that. Mm-hmm. I currently serve as the community service director for the Junior League of Hartford, which is a volunteer organization for women. I have served with the Junior League also in Greater New Haven for many years. I absolutely love community service. I got involved with Junior League. I had heard about it for years. It was kind of this organization that seemed like this exclusive volunteer, but it really wasn't. I saw an ad in the paper for people who wanted to just do volunteer work, and the rest was history.
Nice.
I do a lot of community service right now. I volunteer for the food bank in my local town of Marlborough, where I provide all of their communications. I handle all of their social media and their website for them. And I also volunteer for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I'm big, I raise money for Walk Like Mad every year, and I'm hoping to do the victim impact panel soon once their rehab, kind of the program obviously went virtual for a while. So once they're back in person, I'm hoping to volunteer for that as well. That's a big part of my life. I'm 33, but I feel like I'm 73. I did a lot of growing up pretty quick when I was a little kid. Went through a lot, which we'll talk about today. And here I am. I feel like I overcame so much to get where I am. And I put on a smile, and I'm actually a really cheerful person. Always have been. Mm-hmm. I did cheerleading and theater all throughout school. I was always in cheer and always in theater, so I have that big personality.
Okay.
And but like deep down inside, I feel like I'm kind of I'm up there with the both of you, where I've experienced a lot of trauma, and it's taken a long time for me to get over it. Not get over it, but to get through it. So I'm going to talk about my falling up story today, and how I turned all that pain into having a life purpose.
Yeah, and I don't want to even kind of slow this momentum down, because I think something that is so incredibly beautiful, and what I very much admire is your personality and being able. I don't know if I've had the pleasure of seeing so many of your interactions, not only with kind of colleagues or friends, but with clients, and I've never once seen you deviate from who you are. And that, again, something that both Kevin and I know hold very, very high in kind of looking at a person and saying, do we want to be with them? Are they genuine? And are they who they are across all situations? And you very much are.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I want to just dive right into your story, because it's very, very seldom that I meet people who are so into giving back.
Yeah.
And trying to empower others who haven't experienced, whether you want to call it trauma or just really difficult hardships. Because I think something I know I've learned is a surefire way to get out of myself is to give back to someone else. A surefire way to work through my pain or escape my pain is to work with someone else. And it sounds like you've felt that as well.
Yeah.
But anything on your part, Kev, or can we just jump right in?
I'm ready to go in. Let's do it.
I am too. So I know you mentioned multiple times there a bunch of really difficult parts. So where do you think is a good starting point?
Well, I grew up in a broken home. I really did. My parents were in a very dysfunctional relationship even before I was born. My father was addicted to drugs and alcohol. And he's also gay. So, I know that he loved my mom, but their marriage was just doomed from the start. She, was older than him, really wanted kids, really wanted to settle down. And my dad just didn't have his mind wrapped around it. So they divorced when I was 2. I mean, we were dirt poor, living in the projects in New Hallville, of New Haven. That's where I grew up. Yeah. We would get our free food from the Keefe Center on Dixwell. Yeah. That's where, and they gave us a scholarship to take karate. So that was like our big thing, My mom was really resilient, but unfortunately, a lot of that trauma that she was experiencing, she interpreted that into a really abusive relationship with my brother and I. And so, we really grew up very, very difficult, experiencing very extreme physical and emotional abuse. I mean, some of the things that we experienced, I know, were illegal by today's definition, if not, most of our experiences that were abusive. And, that was very difficult. You grow up in poverty and you grow up in an abusive home. And that's sort of the story of the projects. Yeah. That's the story of the projects. And that's the tragedy of it, is that the people that are experiencing that abuse, it becomes cyclical. They can't get out of it. Do they end up perpetrating it, or do they continue to be victimized by it for the rest of their lives? And I don't mean victimized in a negative way, the way that a lot of people interpret that word. I truly mean that. I mean, they end up becoming survivors of other traumas. And so that's really what ended up happening to me. My first real experience with trauma, besides the abuse that I was experiencing at home, was when I was 5. I was sexually assaulted at the bus stop, very brutally. I actually don't remember anything about the situation. I don't remember a dang thing. I just remember the after effects of it, and it was a really hard situation. When I was 19, I was sexually assaulted again. And I was actually told that I probably wouldn't be able to have kids because of the physical damage that the sexual assault had done when I was 5. You often don't think about that. You hear these stories about kids being molested or raped, but the physical damage alone can be catastrophic. When an adult rapes a child,
Right.
and I hate to say something so triggering, but it's very difficult. And that actually was, something that I felt contributed to the abusive relationship that I had with my mother because they lied to me about it. I found out about it when I was 8. I found a police report in my basement, and it was like a really traumatizing experience to know that happened to me. And that translated into some really unhealthy habits later on in life with, relationships, with, romantic and intimate relationships. And it was hard. My mom caught a break when I was 10, excuse me. She actually got a HUD voucher to go live in Guilford. We were a part of one of the very first low-income housing developments on the shoreline of Connecticut in the history of Connecticut. A nonprofit organization called Mutual Housing Association, now called NeighborWorks New Horizons down in New Haven.
Yep.
They actually helped my mother out a lot. She ended up getting a job with them, and they helped her get a HUD voucher. So we were able to get out of that really dangerous neighborhood where we were suffering, not only trauma at home in our family life, but also trauma in the streets. Everything from finding hypodermic needles in our backyard to people throwing rocks at us at the bus stop to what happened to me when I was 5. Those things happened to me, because of the environment that I was growing up in. So we moved to Guilford, and it was actually a really amazing, life-changing experience. I didn't really make a lot of friends in the community just because we were different, we were poor, and, we were like the new kids. But all in all, it was a much better school system. I had a couple of teachers throughout and guidance counselors who were super supportive of me, really helped me, turn things around. And, I had a really positive experience growing up with the athletic system. I did cheerleading, I did youth theater for years, I did Girl Scouts, a totally different experience than what I would have had I continued to grow up, in that other neighborhood. Right. Additionally speaking, I feel like that has a lot to do with what I've called the white privilege of my life, because there have been so many times that we caught a break and other families didn't. And I feel like so blessed. I don't even want to say it's God, but I almost felt like something was looking out for us because, we were at a breaking point, you're living in a neighborhood, you can barely put food on the table. Your children are, being, having crimes perpetrated against them. You can't protect your own kids in your neighborhood. So we really caught lucky break moving to Guilford. I was lucky to get into college. I felt really blessed. My father hadn't gone to college, but my mother had not. So I was the first person on my mother's side of the family to graduate with a bachelor's. And, that college was my big break. I was able to get away from the abuse of my childhood, which was...
So quickly, I just wanted it because you said college was lucky, right? Can you fill me in on when did you decide you wanted to go to college? When did that become something that was important, right? Because coming from such incredible trauma to being able to have goals, that's a pretty special thing and something that is really hard. And I don't know if I would use the term. So certainly moving out of the projects to Guilford.
Yeah.
there's a lot of luck involved there,
Yeah,
right?
that was
But getting
huge.
into college, I think by saying, hey, it was lucky, I think you're selling yourself incredibly short. So, and I think you're selling the listeners a little bit short, because there's so much that went into you being able to ultimately jump on this new journey and be able to experience all these new things. So is there a way to take a step back and just kind of talk about that process, if you remember it, or if it was just, hey, I'm putting my head down and I'm just trying to make it happen?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think that if I had continued to live in New Haven, I probably would have just ended up back out on the streets. Having experienced the trauma that I did as a girl, and the things that we were going through living in poverty, and then the incredible physical and psychological abuse that I was suffering at home at the hands of my parents. I mean, it wasn't in the cards for me to be successful. So having moved to a community where college was not just encouraged, it was the next step. Everyone is college bound in those communities.
Right.
And also, I also felt lucky because we were so low income. It was like sometimes I couldn't even afford to take the SATs. I couldn't even afford the application fee for certain colleges that I was looking at. And, other people were flying across the country to go to college tours in Cali. And it was like, I was like hiding in my closet while my mom threw stuff at me. Other people's parents were hiring tutors for them to take, entrance exams and my mom was like ripping up the application that I asked her to sign because she was pissed off. So I say lucky because I feel like, yes, I was strong, and yes, I powered through it, and I forced myself through it. And
how'd you do that?
Well, the first step was I conveniently ignored the shitty aspects of my life. I just pretended that I basically pretended. It was a fake it till you make it. I also, I had like this one guidance counselor, Laura Sampiri. I'm actually friends with her on Facebook now, but she was like, I feel like I would have gone down a really different path if it weren't for her. She like helped me get, application waivers. She helped me get grants and scholarships. She was the one who like helped me prep for interviews or help, read, look over my college essays.
And, oh man, it's beautiful, right? But the part that I get to see from the other side is there's a reason that she was helping you.
Yeah, she
right?
was.
And that's the part that might feel lucky to you. But for me looking in, hey, here's this person who was clearly going through so much hardship.
Yes.
So much. The odds were stacked against you. I mean, remarkably so, right? But you were showing up, and that got this person excited to invest in you. And that is beautiful. And I am touching on this, and I'm probably pissing everyone off listening, like, just let Libby talk because it's so great. But I do think it's important to note that when we are suffering, if we show up and we keep pushing, people see that and people want to help. People who are on the other side, they love giving back. And the saying, I know I've said it 100 times here, but a closed mouth don't get fed.
Yeah.
You were showing up, people saw it, and they grab it because it's amazing what you were overcoming in that moment. Amazing.
And, the school system already knew my name because my brother was 2 years older than me and he raised hell. So they were like, a Protzman? Uh-oh. But then they saw this like scared, sad, loner who was like hurting, showing up to school with bruises, showing up to school smelling bad because we didn't have clean clothes. We couldn't afford soap, and so it was like, you're absolutely right. I think there was a couple of teachers who just saw something in me and they knew that I needed the help. I wouldn't call it, maybe it's like being maternal or paternal. Like they saw themselves like as I needed a parent.
Right.
And I was hurting a lot. I was in a lot of pain. And, that led me down some dark paths. I had substance use issues, never really severe, but certainly problems in my life that I struggled with in the past. And, even in high school. And so I feel lucky to have been able to get into college because I feel like the cards were just right for me. And I felt like I I wasn't going to allow myself to fail. That was not an option. I was going to succeed no matter what. I was going to succeed to get revenge. I was going to succeed to change the trajectory of my family so that there wasn't this like cyclical abuse. I was going to make sure that scared little 5-year-old girl wasn't going to happen to me anymore.
Right.
I wasn't going to I was going to go to college. I was going to get my degree. I was going to get a career. I was going to buy a house. I was going to have my own car.
So you had vision.
I had a vision, and I just, yeah.
When did you start having that vision?
So I sort of realized that my family was different when I was 12, and I saw like the other end of the spectrum, like a happy, healthy, like these people have money, they have their needs met emotionally. Maybe there's some problems that I don't know behind the scenes, but it's, they have food on the table, they're not getting beaten with a belt or a frying pan at home, and so someone planted the seed in my head that I was going to be a lawyer.
Really?
Yeah. There are people in my family who were, especially on my father's side, who were very successful. So, there were people that I had as role models, however, someone, and maybe it was a movie, because there's so many cool, like John Grisham movies and stuff like that about lawyers. So someone planted the seed in my head that I was going to be a lawyer someday. And I'm not. I'm not. But I was an advocate for people for many years. So I think that also, maybe have spurred me, maybe that there was that moment when when I got that seed planted in my head that I was going to be an advocate someday. That was a moment for me too. I knew that failure was not an option.
Was that in high school, or before or after?
I think, yeah, in high school.
That was in high school? Okay.
And I started looking at pre-law programs. I found one at UMass. I actually lucked out because there was a program that I could go into that where they would only charge me in-state tuition instead of the out-of-state because of the way that the major was set up, and the state college system within New England does that. They allow students to do that. And so, I think, I went for pre-law, and I think that became a goal too. Failure was not an option. You are going to succeed. You are going to overcome. You're not a pig. You're not a dumbass. You didn't deserve to be hit. You didn't deserve to be raped. Failure is not an option right now. And I've continuously bounced back from all these traumatic situations. And I didn't realize that I was in therapy for a long time, but all throughout school, I had a guidance counselor, and I would have sessions with a guidance counselor. And I think it's because the school system knew what my family and I were what I was going through at home. So I actually, like, in a way, I almost did have like therapy growing up without knowing it. But by the time I actually sat in front of a therapist and was like, I think I'm going to die if I don't talk to somebody about this, I was like, I had already bounced back so many times of my own volition, just like with, in the South, we call it moxie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You got to have moxie, you got to have gumption, you got to, and you got to just fucking push yourself forward. It's going to hurt. And it hurt a lot. There were some really painful memories that I buried down for a long time, but I felt like that really helped me, proceed forward too.
Yeah, that's something I say on the show all the time, and just in life, is turning poison into medicine.
Yes.
That is that's the goal. That's the goal for me every day, and that's what you're describing, which is literally what Falling Up is.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing, and inspiring.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, now, I was going to go into the whole college years.
Yeah.
But you had something to say?
Sure.
Yeah, I just am. Do you feel like at times you just pushed the trauma down and just took action, and then through the action that kind of helped, and then going to therapy, you were able to really work through it? Or I'm just trying to conceptualize what you just said.
I feel like the trauma was so overwhelming that had I started to process it, I feel like I would have had a traumatic break.
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah.
you don't think about it. You don't think about it.
Yeah.
You know, and you're right, I dove into work. I joined a sorority, I did student government, I did like internships up the wazoo. I ended up landing this internship for Apple, which is how I kind of got into marketing. And so I threw myself into work. Another moment was, I was assaulted. I was sexually assaulted by a friend of mine on my 19th birthday. It was a very traumatic situation for me. The way that I was treated by my peers afterwards, that spurred me into action too, because I said, this is fucked up. Someone did something wrong to me and I'm getting laughed at. I'm being told that, this happened. He does this to everyone. He does that to everyone. He does that to all the girls. Don't worry about it, Or, are you sure it even happened? Or, So I feel like that cemented my future with advocacy even more, because I was like, this is fucked up.
Yeah, no one was hearing you. It's like you didn't have a voice.
And that's not a unique story. A lot of girls are sexually assaulted in college. A lot.
Oh, yeah.
But what often is a unique story is when someone takes it and runs with it, right? And actually turns that into advocacy and turns that into a voice. And that is really, really that is who you are, right? And I know I keep going back to this, but I do think that this piece is really important, and something that I can really relate to was, hey, I'm not going to process what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do the next thing that's going to move me forward.
Yeah.
And when I'm at a stable point, I will go back and I will begin to process the trauma.
Yes. Yes.
And that's something that I work on with all of my clients who are so eager and in so much pain that they think if I just work through this trauma, that pain is going to go away. And so many times it just exacerbates it and puts us in the fetal position. Whereas what can I do that's actually going to benefit my life today?
Yeah.
Work on that. That pain's still going to be there in a month and a year. We can then touch it when we're at a stable spot and we have our living situation and a career, and even more importantly, our supports for when we're going through the really deep work. Hey, when I'm alone, that's so overwhelming. When I'm with people, it's a little more helpful. So I'm sorry, everyone, for backing that up.
No, that's a great point.
But I do think that is something that hopefully it spoke to me, and I know I did that in my life as well. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
So jumping back in, I think we're at the point where you're on your way to college or in college.
Yeah. I think it's time we talk about 2009.
Yeah.
2009 was a terrible year for me. It started off, my college boyfriend, who I was like absolutely in love with, dumped me. So I was in the midst of this heartache, ended up in a very toxic, abusive relationship with a narcissist because I was trying to rebound. And my uncle had stage 4 colon cancer. He was at Brantford Hospice. And then my dad had a heart attack. And I was in a really dark place. And I started drinking a lot, partying with people that I thought were cool but weren't, and putting myself in dangerous situations. And the night before I was supposed to move back to college, the guy that I was kind of sort of dating at the time, and also my best friend, told me that they wanted to take me out for something special to say goodbye. Because, I was going to be going off to college, and, I was going to be studying for the LSAT and just really focusing on like next steps or like, internships or something, getting a job, something. And so they surprised me with a boat ride with one of their friends who was very wealthy, had like a private pier on his family's property. And, it turned into probably one of the worst things that ever happened to me. The person driving the boat was intoxicated, crashed the boat. The guy that I was seeing at the time died right in front of me. And my best friend was in a coma for 6 weeks afterwards. And I this is one of those lucky breaks we're going to talk about in my life, because this night, I mean, there's so many things about it. Like, I feel like I should have been more injured. I broke both of my tibias were broken, but I somehow managed to be able to crawl for help. I was the one that crawled for help after the accident. Everyone else was knocked unconscious. Or we all were knocked unconscious, but when I came to, my instinct was to crawl for help. And, I was like army crawling in like excruciating pain. I was covered in blood. Didn't know where the fuck I was. Scared. I didn't realize the gravity of the accident either. I thought, oh, wow, they're probably just on the beach, like, in pain. And I came to this house. And I'll tell you, this is one of those lucky breaks, because, I was banging on the back door of this house. Somehow I got the door open, and this elderly couple shows up. They must have been so scared, and they, by rights, they had every right to like shoot me. I was an intruder in their home, breaking into their back door. And this was like an exclusive private property. Like, there would be very little way for people to get onto their property. So this must have scared the heck out of them. Right. And you hear stories about like people of color who have been involved in terrifying accidents or having a medical emergency. They go and seek help, and they are attacked by or injured or killed by the very people that they're trying to seek help from. So I feel like this is one of my lucky breaks, because, they got me a towel, they got me an ice pack. They said, we're calling 911, we're calling your mother. When I tell you that the next 2 years of my life were a complete blur, I mean it. When I really started to realize the gravity of the situation when my friend was being life-starred via helicopter to the trauma unit at Yale. And I kept hearing fatality over the EMT, over the radios in the EMT radio in the ambulance. And it just, there's so many things about that incident, the sensory issues that bring up trauma. I was afraid to go to the beach for many years afterwards. The smell of low tide, the sound of an ambulance, it all brought up so much trauma for me. It was so incredibly hard. And I had survivor's guilt terribly. What if I was the one that died? And not that other person? Why me? But I still feel incredibly lucky, because there was so much about that night. So much. God forbid I had been more injured and I hadn't been able to seek help. Do you think my other friend would have died too? Do you think we all would have died?
Right.
Maybe we all would have drowned. What if the couple that maced me or shot at me, they had every right to. I was intruding in their home. They had to, I could have been a burglar or worse. But they didn't. And I don't know if you believe in a higher power, if you believe in just catching that lucky break, or maybe that's white privilege. But something was looking out for me that day. Mm-hmm. Something was looking out for me that day.
I like to think it's purpose. I like to say you're here for a reason. He kept you because I used to always say, like, when the Lord get the calling, you can't press ignore. So when it's your time, it's your time. And when it's not your time, it's not your time. And you have more to do.
Yeah.
Which you obviously keep doing. So,
I almost didn't go back to school. I had to take several weeks off because I could barely walk. And
I'm sorry for kind of laughing at a very inappropriate time to laugh, but the idea that you're like, I almost didn't go back to school. I just took a couple weeks off after arguably one of the most traumatic things that anyone could have ever experienced. You're like, I just took a couple weeks off and I'm right back at it. Almost didn't, right? Like that's a testament to. And when you're talking about all these what ifs and kind of the hindsight and the Monday morning quarterbacking of the situation, I look at it almost going back. That was probably the most important thing you could have done. Doing something, taking some sort of action versus staying in this because I'm sure going back was wildly painful, but not going back, that's the moment I look at as like, what if you didn't do that? What would have happened if you just sat in that pain and stayed stagnant in that pain?
Yeah.
You're incredible. You're incredible. To be able to hop right back on and join life again 2 weeks out is, man, I'm speechless. Hard. Yeah.
And it continued to haunt me because there was a lengthy criminal trial and a civil trial, and the pressure was all on me because I was the only witness other than a person who had such severe brain trauma they couldn't even remember times before the incident, and then the defendant and a person who died. So I mean, I was the only witness. So depositions. And this was a higher profile case. I mean, it was on the cover of several newspapers. And it was haunting for me because I felt like even when I graduated, my big fear was that, people were going to be, potential jobs. The HR was going to Google my name and see that. And they were going to associate me with something dark or, drinking or partying. I don't know. And I felt like it was continuing to haunt me. I couldn't escape from it. I ended up having to move away from Guilford. There was a time where I was sleeping in my car because I just couldn't go back to my mom's house. My mom lived on the water. She lived literally in a little tiny little cottage right by the marsh. So it was like constant reminder.
Right.
It was, just a couple miles from where the accident happened. So, there was a time when, after college, I was living in my car, just, and showering at the gym, looking for jobs.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I bailed out, when I caught the case in New Jersey, I was living in Connecticut though, but I went home, got caught up, whatever, and I bailed out. And I didn't want to go I was so embarrassed in New Jersey that I was homeless, sleeping outside, and the gym. That's a classic move.
Yes.
That's a classic homeless survival move. Go to the gym, take a shower. You know what I mean? Work out, take a shower, be fresh for the day.
Free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you know it. You know it.
Planet Fitness had free food sometimes.
Yeah.
So it was like
unlimited water.
Yes, unlimited. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But nah, I relate to that. Like, it's a trigger, and it's just I would rather deal with this shitty situation of being in the gym than that. But at the time, to me, and at the time for you, the way shittier situation of just being in that environment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's for sure. I totally relate to that. Totally. So, where did you think not where. When did you think the up moment came? Because I know you're suppressing the trauma and moving forward through college, right?
Yeah.
Like when did you start like looking back at the trauma, like to start working through it?
So there were a couple days where. So let me preface this by saying that I don't know if I ever really actually had depression as much as I just had such bad PTSD that it was actually like making me psychotic. I was starting to lose my grip with reality. And there were some days where it really showed. And I feel like there was a moment where actually Mothers Against Drunk Driving, I reached out to them with their victim services. And there was a moment where they were like, you need to talk to someone about what happened to you. So I started doing talk therapy, EMDR, even art therapy, and none of it was working. And then finally, someone was like, actually, I think you need to take medication. That was a fucking game changer for me. Really? I do not stress psych meds for anybody, because I know the toll that they can take on you physically.
Right.
They can make you, they have all kinds of, and so this is like worst case scenario for some people. But for me, it was like, if I didn't take meds, I would have died. Either from my own hand or an OD or, being drunk at some point or just, putting myself in another dangerous situation, and so medication was a really big too. I had another awesome break. I call it my lucky moment. Someone told me about the connection. And at the time I was working for like a little computer company in Guilford. I was in grad school online. I, did my MBA online. And I was like dead broke, dirt poor. And I was living out of my car, or like I would sleep at my boyfriend's, or like, I was like, I didn't have a home, we'll say. And someone told me about the connection that they helped with security deposit assistance. So I went down to the connection, and there was this awesome dude, David Horn. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Yes,
awesome
I have.
Dude.
Yep.
And he was my case manager, and he helped me get an apartment. And that was incredible for me.
That's huge.
That was huge, and I had a job. So for the most part, I was really able to afford it myself, but it was just that security deposit that was the holdup. I couldn't, I had a car to take care of. I had so many bills I was handling on my own. I was making $12 an hour.
I was a college student.
Yeah,
for sure.
So getting that apartment was huge. I felt like that was, incredible. It was the first time that I was like truly living on my own, supporting myself. And, I had something to show for it. I had my own home base, and it was right on the outskirts of East Rock in New Haven. And I loved my job at the time, but it was just a really difficult environment because it was in Guilford, and it was just constantly reminding me of the situation that happened. And I ended up seeing, I thought, gee, I should really get into advocacy again. Like, where's, what happened to your lawyer dream? Like, come on, like, let's get back to that. And I saw that Columbus House was hiring. And, I didn't even have a suit. I just had like nice clothes because I didn't even have a suit. I was so poor. And that was my big break. Getting that another big break for me. And this stuff happened like rapid fire too. It was incredible. I felt like this incredible momentum. I got on meds. I was doing really well. I wasn't abusing substances. I wasn't, I was working this pretty cool job. I was in grad school online, part-time. And I just got this awesome job at a homeless shelter where I got to help people. And that was incredible. It was just amazing. And I had my own health insurance, and, I had life insurance. Like, I felt so cool. Right. I was like 23 on my own, that was like a honeymoon time of my life. It was incredible.
Yeah, you keep saying you caught breaks. I don't think you caught breaks. How many people, I don't have a security deposit, so I just, again, get in the fetal position or just keep doing what I'm doing and work harder instead of smarter. Whereas you put yourself out there, found a program, got the security deposit, developed all of this confidence, took a leap of faith, quit one job that you were comfortable at, even though it wasn't the best environment, got this new job with the apartment and all the confidence that lined up way more with your passions and getting back into advocacy. And as a result, you felt like you were on top of the world, right? I don't think that's a break. I think that's you putting in the work and having it pay off.
100%.
So I'm sorry for being such a stickler for that word,
totally
but
fine.
I think when we don't give ourselves credit for putting in the work and we think things just get handed to us, we forget that no, we did very, very specific things that moved us out of that hole.
Yeah.
And if I put the light on that, no matter what hole I find myself in life, I can go back to those reference points and do the specific skills that I did then that will move me out. And that, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah. I mean, just even that job, like, I felt like, it opened so many doors for me. Like, I started doing, I started off as a case manager, and then I got a promotion, and I started doing training for DEMIS. I became one of the SOAR trainers for DEMIS, Department of Mental Health. For years, I was doing that. I got to go to these conferences. I got to speak at conferences about what we were doing with SOAR case management. I got,
And quickly, can you just fill everyone in on what SOAR case management actually is and what the because it serves a very, very important role in many, many people's lives, immediately benefiting them.
So SOAR is a specific case management model that is basically like a lawyer. I mean, because I often worked with lawyers, but the concept is that you take people who are disabled and on the streets, people that are not employable for mental health, physical health, a combination of both. We get them on Social Security benefits, Social Security disability, which is a program that has been around for many years. And we would get them on Social Security benefits and get them housed. The model itself is, a lot of paperwork, but I interviewed hundreds of people and went through hundreds of applications, and we were very successful because New Haven was really poised in a way to be. We had Yale University, we had the School of Medicine, we had CMHC, we had the hospital, we had all the other shelters or service organizations, that interconnection. And this is before like the coordinated access even existed either. So this is like, going back to like 2011. And so, we were able to help a lot of people. And the funny thing is that so many times they would be talking and they would be telling me my story right back to my face. They would be talking about the same symptoms that I had. And, and sometimes it was triggering for me. And I did feel burnt out, especially, if I was having other issues, if I was stressed out about school or studying or bills or my relationships, work could really get me down. But it was incredible helping those people. I felt like I was helping them. I was helping that little 5-year-old girl.
That's it.
I was helping that 21-year-old on that boat. Or that 19-year-old that, was raped.
Right.
Or that, 8-year-old whose mom threw boiling water at her. I was helping that little girl. And I did. We did. We helped hundreds of people get off the streets that way. And when you have stable income, the sky's the limit. Many of them went on to get jobs, start families, recover, move out of New Haven into the suburbs. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah, Benny's right. There's nothing lucky about that. You put yourself in a position, you push through. You push through. Like, we can't downplay that. Like, because the majority of people, what's the word? Fetal position.
Yes.
The majority. And it's like, not only did you push through, the people that hear this, the people that get to be in your space and your energy, like, they have no choice but to be inspired.
Yeah.
Because
Thank you.
For real, one of those traumatic events can be an excuse for most people to be like, fuck it.
Yeah.
You done named 3 different ones that are game changing, and you turned it into medicine like that. Man, if I went to church, I say church because this is a Sunday morning, and this feel like, you know what I'm saying? Because this is
I mean, there were other situations for me, but I feel like ever since that time period in my life, things have been really amazing for me. I've really, I met someone during that time period who truly loved me, and he's been my life partner ever since. Except for the times that he dumped me. But we're married and we have kids now.
That's my boy. That's my boy too. That's my boy. That's my boy.
Yeah, I owe a lot to him. Financially. Logistically for putting up with me. But and one thing they say is that trauma often manifests itself in a physical way. So, when I had my first son, it was a really traumatic birthing experience. I had preeclampsia really bad. I had internal bleeding really bad. It was just really, I had to have an emergency C-section after a very difficult labor. But he came out screaming, 9 pounds. He's a toughie. Great kid. He's doing great in school now. He's 5. Oh, it's gonna be 5 in a couple weeks. It's gonna be 5. So, but I felt like having survived being raped in the past, like that tainted my birthing experience, because I felt like when I was in the labor and delivery room, And if when you guys go on to have kids, this is something I really want you to think about when you talk with your partner. Is and to anyone listening, is that the birthing experience can be very traumatic for women who have been raped or molested, because everyone's looking at your crotch, everyone's touching it, everyone's grabbing your boobs, trying to get you to breastfeed. It can be very traumatic for women. So it took me a couple of years to adjust from that. And then,
are there any skills or things that you were able to use to adjust, or just kind of happened over time pushing through?
Well, I think I jumped after I had maternity leave. I jumped right back into shelter work. Loved it at the time. They had just gotten a grant to do SOAR with the DOC population, so I was actually just traveling throughout the state, going to different corrections facilities, different jails and prisons, to help people who were going to be transitioning out into the community to get benefits, people who were disabled. And it was a comfy distraction. It was a comfy distraction. But then I got pregnant with my second baby. I had my second baby, and that was in 2018 was when I got diagnosed with neuroendocrine carcinoid, which is a type of cancer that attacks your intestinal system. I had to have surgery. I did a couple of rounds of therapy treatments too, but all in all, I'm fine now. I mean, it was never fatal ever. It was never like a scary moment, but it was hard for my family, especially when I was getting the treatments. I couldn't touch my kids because
the chemo. Yep.
For a couple of, I couldn't hold my little baby. I couldn't nurse my baby because it's still in your system for a little while. So that was hard, but I've done, they have so many studies, based off the ACE study from Kaiser Permanente about how trauma manifests in physical ways. And I've talked about this with a lot of people, how I feel like, the physical problems that I have, I have an autoimmune disease, I have asthma, I'm overweight a little bit, I had cancer. I feel like all of that came from what happened, the trauma that I experienced, but I overcame that too. And it was, I feel like I've always failure was never an option. I had to push forward for one reason or another. Then I had 2 kids and they're beautiful. They're such great kids. And I was like, then I had a reason. They were my reason to push forward.
That's right. It
wasn't even about me anymore.
That's right.
That was a big changing moment for me too. Bringing another human into the world is you can't be depressed. You can't lay in bed. You can't, hallucinate, images of people that harmed you, or you can't hallucinate images of the person that died in that accident. You can't hear voices anymore. You have to move forward. Anytime
you say your kids, all I think about is earlier when you said they told you that you may never have kids.
Yes.
That's such a powerful, just a powerful moment in terms of manifestation.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Again, poisoning the medicine, beating the odds, believing in yourself, purpose.
Yeah.
It's so, Libby, whew.
And Chris and
amazing.
We had a couple of miscarriages too. So we felt we never had any issue conceiving. It was always miscarriages, and it was always you have scar tissue or it's damaged because of what happened to you. This is very triggering. So I just want to warn people. One thing I talk to people about is when I was 5, I had to have stitches down there as a result of what happened. And the only memory I have is my mom putting ointment on the stitches. And so fast forward to 2016 when I was pregnant and they were telling me that I was probably going to have to get stitches.
Right.
It was fucking terrifying. It was I am so excited. I'm going to be a mom finally, but holy fuck, am I going to walk through hell to get there?
Right.
And it's going to bring up bad memories.
I'm very thankful for this podcast today. And one of the things I'm thankful for, you enlightened us, I think just all the men in here, I never would have put rape with birth and how that could, I would have never, you know what I mean? And but when you explained it, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But I think as men, that go that would we would even so
It's
that's
hard.
like yeah
'Cause you gotta get naked because you gotta get into your hospital, Johnny.
Right.
To check for your dilation, they put their finger. They check digitally they use to check for dilation. So you've got like nurses and doctors coming in and out. Like, oh wow, thank you. At least take me out for dinner first. Like you're like spread eagles and like but that I made a joke, but. And I laugh, but that can be really traumatizing.
Of course.
Especially for women who, like I had done a lot of therapy. I had taken meds. I had even had a couple of psych hospitalizations. I even did ECT for a while because my psychosis and my PTSD were so bad. So I had the tools and resources to get better, but a lot of women don't.
Right.
And something, I know I keep harping on this and I sound like a broken record, but you just do. You take action.
Yeah.
You talked about how, hey, this is supposed to be this such exciting, beautiful moment. I'm about to be a mother. I'm so happy, but I have hell to walk through before I get there. How many people just, again, don't do that and let that idea of what the hell is going to be overcome,
Right.
and then they never get to experience the wonders on the other side. Yes. You have every single hardship in your life you have met head on. And there is a reason that you're here today. And you said that you kept saying, hey, being a mother, I can't lay in bed. I can't think of these hallucinations. I can't. The reality is you can. And a lot of people do, unfortunately, right? But if you face them head on like you have, you will get to the other side and you will experience something that you didn't even know was possible. Yeah. And that is, I'm speaking in absolutes because that is the absolute truth. To stay stuck is to let that fear, right? Which I love the acronyms, false evidence appearing real, letting that hold you back. And instead of walking through it and truly getting to the other side and seeing the reality of what life has to offer, we just can run away and not do that and then get robbed of a incredible being a mother.
Yeah.
Working in a field where you have passions. Like if you didn't take steps forward, you would never experience that. And like you said, you would have succumb to the traumas.
Yes.
But that's not your story. And that is so incredibly inspiring. And I have no doubt that every single person who listens to this podcast is going to want to run through a brick wall.
That's right.
Every single person.
There's everything you just said. All I keep hearing in my head is the storm will pass.
Right. If we walk through it.
If we walk through
right?
it.
If we don't, we get buried in it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's like, another thing is you don't have to be strong. I think that there's this common misunderstanding that you have to be strong and that you have to do like A+ work when you're overcoming trauma. You don't.
No.
I'm a solid B+. That's my mantra. People ask me how I'm doing. I'm B+, man. It ain't perfect, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I hurt a lot of people along the way. I made a lot of mistakes. I dropped out of law school. I lost jobs. I quit jobs. I burned bridges along the way, in some ways pretty severely. And so, but you're right. Like I still moved forward. You just find a way. And I don't even say like you find a way within yourself. Some people have coping mechanisms too. Some are healthy, some are not so healthy. Right. I definitely had some unhealthy ones, but I had healthy ones too. I really found a lot of comfort in the gym. The gym was like my place when I was, sleeping out of my car. When I was experiencing a lot of symptoms, the gym helped me a lot. I would exercise. I would do yoga, lifting weights, cardio, anything, any sort of movement. That was,
And I'm really glad you brought that up because I think the gym is a microcosm to life, right? Meaning that it's us against us. It's us against us. And when I'm going and I don't think I can make it and then I make it and I feel great on the other side, that again, fill in any hard moment in your life. You don't think you're going to make it and then you make it and you feel great on the other side. It's such an important skill that I feel knowing who I am when I'm working out versus who I am when I'm not. I feel so bad for people who don't at least have those reference points to be able to make a decision. I feel so bad because it's an immediate way to get better. It really is. It's an immediate way.
And I think one thing I've always like talked about with people is like turning those painful situations that I had into some sort of purpose also was really, helped me heal. And like I said, it wasn't perfect. I didn't like write a book or start a nonprofit. Like I don't speak for TED. I've never been on TED, TED Talk.
Yeah, I was about to say yet. I was definitely about to say that.
It's coming.
But
For sure.
I dropped
It's
out of
coming.
school. Like
For sure.
I've done stupid stuff, but I still did. I still set out what I did to do and to heal from those situations. I started volunteering for Mothers Against Drunk Driving, telling my story, sharing, helping them raise money for their 5Ks. I volunteered in my community through various different organizations. I had a full-time and a part-time job at homeless shelters for a long time. I also, I believe that I was assaulted by a pedophile. So I got introduced to an organization called Love 146 a couple of years ago. They have different volunteer teams across the world, but they are about ending child sex slavery and just, ending child trafficking. And so I started volunteering with them because I felt like I could help other little kids, that may have been experiencing or at risk of experiencing what I did. Right. So it wasn't like I went out and like sat on the board and did something phenomenal for these folks. I just like, sometimes it's just as simple as getting on your phone and starting a profile on their fundraising page.
Yeah.
Telling and then sharing it with the story with your friends. Sometimes it's just as simple as that.
Or just showing up and being a part of, being around other like-minded people.
Right.
Minimally, right? Like there's so much beauty in that.
It's a cheat code.
It is.
It's a cheat code.
It is.
Yeah.
And they have the cliche saying like showing up's 90% of it. It's so true. You show up and somehow the rest ends up happening. You put yourself in good positions, good things happen. Just like you put yourself in bad positions, bad things happen. We can call that karma. We can call that whatever we want to call it, right? Yeah. But that often is the reality. So I know, believe it or not, we're just about out of time.
This is it. Yeah.
No.
So
No.
we always
Extend the time, Brad Cheeks.
We can keep going for another couple of minutes if you want.
I could have conversations like this forever because they really are so beautiful. So something we like to ask every guest that we have on the show is if you could tell someone who was falling down or stuck or in a really hard part in life, give them one piece of advice, what would that be?
You have to find that one inner quality in your in your personality deep inside you that remains positive. There has to be something about you that stays positive. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a positive, healthy lifestyle. Lord knows there's many times I didn't.
Yeah,
you don't have to have like a positive bank account. You don't have to have a positive career. You just have to have that one inner quality. For me, like going back to the very beginning of our conversation, it was my cheerfulness. It was my personality. That was it.
It's infectious.
Yeah.
It's infectious.
That's the first thing I ever met.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's smile right there.
That's right.
I have like a running joke. I have the opposite of resting bitch face. And people often think that like my outward personality is fake because it's just so cheerful. But like, no, it's a coping mechanism for my trauma. And it's what got me here to this day.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
I love it.
I love it.
It could be your personality. It could be your love for someone else. It could be your intellect. Maybe you're an epic scholar. Maybe you're really good at science. Maybe you're good at lifting weights. But you find that one inner quality within yourself that stays positive, and you fucking go with it. Because everything else, it doesn't matter. You could have negatives and everything else, but you have that one thing within you. It could be your hobby even. I know a lot of people who have done stuff like Dungeons and Dragons or skateboarding or, knitting, painting, motorcycle riding, fixing up old Corvettes.
Right.
You find that one thing in your life. that's positive, and you just stay there.
I love that.
Well, you're living proof that works. So
Yes.
I can't thank you enough. And I don't like to make promises, especially ones that I don't always have control over. But the one thing I can promise is this conversation will help a lot of people. We're so grateful to have you on.
Yeah,
I really can't even begin to thank you enough for sharing really, really, really personal and trying experiences, and being so incredibly open and genuine. I know I'm a better person having heard that conversation. So
Absolutely.
very, very, very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody enjoyed another episode of the Fallen Up podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.